this is the bit, isn't it? It's that confuses me. It's like,
oh, and there we go. A proper intro. It freaking glitches every time. StreamYard. We are finally live. We are joined tonight. The panel, we have Mike Faraday Research with us, top opposite corner of myself. Below him, Mr. Matthew Rife, Rife Technologies, the ever-present ominous beatboxing, but I was trying to say Simon, but I said ominous instead, and we do have ominous, so ominous, please take it away, good sir.
Well, of course, we're going to be discussing sound. Well, I'm an aspect of sound. Let's just say it comes within. Hang on, let me set things up here. All right, come on. What? Come on. Like Pac-Man. Rhythm. All right. Transformation. How am I sounding so far, BurnEye? Is it okay?
Very dope, although I think my internet glitched out a little bit, sadly, but it was described as a fucking amazing, so we'll say curious cats.
No, you have to say
That's very nice.
Fucking amazing.
Oh, thanks.
Thank you. So tonight we are going to go over several different aspects of sound, including some cymatics and different frequencies, and delve further back into solfeggio frequencies again. as we have gone a bit into it in the past, as well as finally getting the Rife coils hooked up that we have here. And there's Campbell. Welcome, good Campbell, sir.
Hello. Hello. I made it. How are we
You
all?
made it. Jeez. How are you from Australia, good sir?
All right. Good. What's going down? Looks like I'm surrounded by smart people.
Oh, no.
Well, let's not get carried away.
Indeed. So, cymatics and Matthew, can you explain a bit of the Z app and what sort of frequencies I'm going to be putting through these Rife coils that I'm going to be setting up here over the next half hour? Oh, you're muted. You're muted, Mr. Rife. There we go.
Right now. There we go. So the app that I'm going to be building is going to be sectioned out into different types of frequencies, like self-geo, or I don't know what you call it. I always call it self-geo, but Cephagio? But anyway, it's going to be separated in all these different sections, but the Z app specifically does anything from 25,000 hertz and below, so 25 kilohertz and down. There's nothing that can go on a phone to be able to do a function generator that can go over 25,000 that I know of. I don't know if that's just a parameter set by the chipset or anything else, but I just know it can't happen. They won't allow it to happen. So I'm building a standalone to where you can go all the way into the megahertz range, even though you don't need to.
Well, audibly, you don't ever really need to go past a certain range. Because even, like mosquitoes, old people can't hear them because they're too high pitch.
Yeah, but whenever we create EMFs out of them. So that's what the app that I'm building is going to be the main function of it, to be able to send that audio format in square wave sign into the amplifier. Amplifier is the electrical producer or supplier to be able to run throughout the coils to create the electromagnetic fields. I don't think you should go over 25,000 anyway.
So currently you're saying that there's this other app, the Z app, and on it there are these Cephagio frequencies, and that's essentially what the aim of putting through it, or are there these other Rife frequencies as well?
So it's on that app, it's not broken down into solfeggio or Rife. It's just you can play any frequency. You can look it up, anything from 0 to 25 kilohertz.
Okay. And which do you recommend starting with?
Honestly, I always like to start out with 528. It does so much. It has love in it. It's the resonant frequency of the sun. And they say it helps with the DNA repair up on the audio. I don't know how it does with DNA up on EMF, though.
Okay. Yeah, and 528 is a very good one to recommend it. Like, Mike, that's what you have going into your water, correct? Is the 528 as well as 432, or?
Yeah, mainly 528. It seems to be all around the best frequency.
I mean, it's the frequency of our sun, and without light, there is no life. So I just think we resonate with it really well.
Yeah. I've also worked with 432 as well.
Yeah, and combining the 432 and the 528. So you have both going through at the
Usually,
moment? Just one?
I've done both. I've done 432 and 528 together, but most of the time I'll just do like one batch of water per week. I'll let it spin in the chamber for a week, and I'll just keep it at one frequency. And it works on plants well too. I find it really enhances good growth.
Right.
Yeah, it will, and plants plants understand more about frequencies than we do anymore, just like animals understand more than us. So they're really going to thrive off of it. But the changes in human health and the human body just by playing frequencies it's miraculous, really, when you've never done it. So a lot of people just pick right up on it, and they can tell the difference in their body.
I'd be very interested in seeing a side-by-side comparison, just for the germination, since it's such a short window of time that you actually have to do the experiment.
Yeah, I know somebody who's done an extensive study on this stuff, and there's a lot going on.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm going to be setting one up before too long on different frequencies on the Rife machine, and playing the different frequencies to do side by side. So I'm going to be building Faraday cages and running all the germination. I found that the germination can go from like 7 days down to 3, no problem at all.
Yeah, and also the hydration of the plant increases when you use the water. You need less of it to do the same. That's what I've been told.
Question up by Curious Cat. What is the best way to get sound frequency into water?
EMFs.
EMF transducers. Yep.
Hello, Phase Shifter. JP, welcome. Simon, if I had bet you money, I would owe you money.
I apparently know you too well.
There we go.
There we go. Welcome. And we also have Adam, Space Case, with us, also joined in. So EMFs going in, but like coils, speakers, obviously, this design, Mr. Rife, to be putting them in. And you're saying I should be putting the coils 12 feet apart from each other?
That's just optimum distance, but you don't really have to put them 12 feet apart. We have the cords cut at 6 feet, so you're not going over that, because you're going to create 2 different fields around you. And whenever it goes out past the 6 foot mark on radius, then it really dies down a lot.
Okay, and then for water, should I essentially have it like where you have one coil there, the water on top, or like put a board or something in between, and then this coil facing down over top of them? Oops, sorry.
So you have to remember this is going to be polarity, right? So the top of those coils are your positive and the bottom are your negative. And, we get positive repelling positive, we get negative repelling negative. So I like to set the water on top because it kind of just shoots it right into it. And it does push out the extra positives on it. If it's overly charged, it helps push all of that away. But you can set it next to it as well. But I just would never set on one like we was talking about the last time, where you put it up underneath your chair, because then you're doing electron therapy up on yourself.
Okay. And thank you, Angel Wings, for supporting the cause on one of our channels, Love and Light All, and there are higher chakras to Earth stars, soul stars, universe, galactic, divine gateway. 1000% there are, and that we are going to be delving into the technology to get through these divine gateways and portals, essentially, and the healing vibes in between.
So how do we open the portal?
That actually has more to do with the Hutchinsons that they're going to be on the next episode. Sadly, they weren't able to make it. But I'm sure JP will give us a taste of a little bit of it by the end of tonight.
I mean, yeah, so that 42 2 symbol, you see that, you know, symbols like that a lot around on the buildings. Now, I'm just wondering if you could see which buildings are tuned to which frequency by the, you know, the windows or the cymatic symbols that are on them, because we theorize that all these buildings were doing just this, right? Pumping out frequencies to make people healthier, to grow plants bigger, to whatever.
Absolutely, as well as like the pyramids and all of the technology, the cymatic fields, and it being field strengths and field interactions, and that is how all energy exists in transfers within this universe, essentially, and that the ancients had a much better understanding of it than we. And also that color, surprisingly, the color spectrum has a lot tied into the transition of these waves of light and sound energy. Ooh,
Well, every frequency has like a sound, a color, a shape, you know, it has lots of different qualities, doesn't it?
Well, I can show you guys later. I'm going to go over a couple of different clinical trials on 432 versus 440.
Sure. Would you actually like to start that right now, Matt? My dog is just whining nonstop, so I got to let him out for a minute.
Yeah, we can definitely do that. Can you pull up my website really quick? And on the menu, click more research and scroll all the way to the bottom.
If you're on a computer, I can actually just resend you a co-host.
I'm on an iPad.
Okay. Never mind. Campbell, would you... I guess, I can do that quick before.
Go to a website, realrifetechnology.com.
Okay. Posting it in private chat for you. And
you're fixing the link?
Yes. Sorry?
Is that correctly sound yours? Or?
No. Somewhere it is. Oh, welcome, Gerald. Hello. Somewhere it's raining pretty heavily by the sounds of it. Is that you? No, Adam's muted. Campbell, is it pouring rain there? Where is it pouring rain?
It's here.
So,
you have a very good microphone.
Yeah, it's picking up all the noise. So we've been starting to get frazzle ice that's been coming down. And if you guys don't know what frazzle ice is, it's rare. It has like a 10%, just a 10% change in climate as the rain's falling. And it's really rare to be able to get rain or snow and get this frazzle ice falling at the same time, but it's been happening all day today.
That's crazy. The different weather's different. Change. So Campbell, would you be able to pull up that Rife Technology I post? Oh, you got it. You're on it already. My bad.
Okay, here we go. And if you go up to the menu, and there's the more with the drop down to the right.
Yeah.
And then go down to research. So these are all the peer-to-peer studies that I've been able to locate on NIH.gov. Not all of them, but if you scroll all the way to the bottom, I have a special section just for sound alone. And, effects of music on 432 and 440 on dental anxiety. This goes over how they structured this, and they literally took two groups of 3 women, and they were all going in for dental procedures. And they was playing 432 during the dental procedure, and it was found to reduce cortisol levels in their body. And the 440 actually brought cortisol levels to a high. And so it was helpful to be able to play whenever you have your A string tuned at 432 and then tune it from there. It was able to reduce anxiety, help cortisol levels, help people stay calm because it resonates more with the human body. The effects on music, specific frequency up on the sleep architecture, this was found to be able to produce a little bit higher alpha waves to be able to go into REM state sleep a lot easier. And this is all just because of 432. Then we have influences of music on the perception of anxiety during endodontic treatment, a randomized study. So this one, if I remember correctly, during COVID, all the nurses and everything, they was very stressed out. It was very hard on them. So this is a very recent study. I think it's more recent than the rest of them. And they were playing this in like break rooms, and they was playing at other places, and they were found to have a reduced anxiety as well. Then listen to music 440 or versus 432, great benefits for 432. And then the music too. I mean, all of these are the same. These are here for you guys to be able to open up, to be able to read them, learn exactly what they did, and get the measured outcomes that they come up with. But every one of them have been found to help a lot of people because it does resonate with your body more. So I guess this goes into a different section, as in even on the electromagnetic frequencies, this is a reason that we have to build the coils specifically, and we have to tune them to a certain degree because of terminating impedance, for one, which was an issue that recently got fixed. But these have to be tuned to be able to, I think Jeremiah phrased it as in create the momentum to penetrate the cells.
Okay. Wow. So how do you tune a coil?
There's a lot of math involved, especially coils like this, because there's a certain winding pattern you have to go through, and you have to use certain lengths of wire. And, you know, Jeremiah helped me out a lot with the copper ratio, because I was running a 1-to-1 ratio, and he helped me to get it to 1-to-1.
Okay, so I guess very technical.
Yeah, there's a lot of math involved, and it was hard for me to learn this because this is stuff that wasn't in Roy's notes, and I had to just delve into electrical and figure all this out on my own. And I finally come up with these coils, and I'm trying to create a new design that's even better, that takes it to the next level. But the other one, they're going to both work efficiently, of course.
Well, we are all graced with somebody today in our participant list on the call who would be your expert on that there with the big G. If you wanted to understand coil ratios, copper, and sacred geometric winding systems, you need to talk to the big G.
I am now up to 175 separate coils, all different from each other. I've now built. Just saying.
Wow, yeah, I'll definitely get in contact with you. I'll put my number and everything in the private chat.
Yeah, for sure.
So I've just got some tuning forks recently. So this is basically all the same tech, right? I mean, I guess what the main difference is a frequency generator holds the frequency longer than a tuning fork. Is that pretty much the difference?
So you got a couple of different things going on with tuning forks. For one, that works on sound, and sound has to have atmosphere to work. It works upon compression, decompression. So it literally moves the atmosphere. Electromagnetic frequencies, they can travel through the vacuum of space. And if you don't match it correctly to be able to resonate with the body, then you cannot penetrate cells. Therefore, you cannot help the body. It's just going to pass over them. So all of these deal with frequencies. Now, if you have two different tuning forks that are the same frequency, if you hold one up here and then you ring this one, that sound wave, that compression, decompression is going to make your other one ring because it resonates with it. So this is the importance as in getting into the cells and being able to do other things like knock it out inflammation.
Okay, so the frequency generator needs a way. That's what you were just talking about. You need that needle point to get into the cell.
Yeah, you have to be able to resonate with the human body cell. So you have to, really get into it. And that's how, on how you wind the coil and how the wrapping is done. And on these, I built the Fibonacci sequence into it. Right now, I'm working on a 24 point. So I'm going to be running. Gerald, have you ever done a 24 point?
Many of them, actually. quite a few.
Okay. Yeah, I'll have to send you the winding pattern that I'm working on and see if you've ever done that. Because if you haven't have any tips on it, it'd be great.
I'm in the process right now of I'm getting ready to do a presentation, so to speak. And I'm going to lay out all my coils so that you can see everything I built. And yeah, maybe that'll coincide with what you're doing now. I don't know. But if it helps, great. If not, I mean, like, we can definitely get together on it.
Yeah, 100%. I appreciate that. So why did you order the tuning forks, Campbell?
I've got an injury in my arm, and so basically someone sent them to me for free because I'm interviewing them and promoting the product. So yeah, I didn't actually pay for them, but I've got a whole set of like really high quality. They're like the solfeggio, what is it, Sofa-Lee?
I've always called it solfeggio. But I don't know. But yeah, it's awesome. They sent you a full set of them. So what this is doing whenever you listen to frequencies, it's going to go through the cochlea of your ear, which has the Fibonacci sequence built into it, naturally. And it's going to filter out all of the, off rhythm, I want to say, of the different sounds. It's going to filter that out, and you're going to get the pure like 432 or 528. Now, that will go down to the base of your skull, and then it travels into your brain, and your brain is going to process it. It's going to send electrical synapses wherever they need to go. These electrical synapses within your brain, they work on neural pathways, and they have their own electrical frequency in them produced by the brain. So with the Rife machine, you can go in and you can stimulate that for it, and it's carrying energy with it because it's electromagnetic frequencies. So it's kind of like if you're driving a boat, you can spend all of your fuel and gas and run your horsepower on your motor to be able to get from point A to point B, or you can just have the waves take you there to where it's pushing you and it delivers you to point B. So it's the benefit of using a Rife machine.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So it's, once you get it right, it's much more effective. It pushes itself through, sort of thing. Like the waves keep going, I guess it's got a better resonance.
Yeah, the waves, you don't have to do any work. It's working out for you. So, I mean, it's like going to the gym and you just walk into the gym and before you know it, somebody's doing the workouts for you and you're getting all the benefit.
Where do I go for that? Is there a gym that does that?
I don't know if there's necessarily a gym, but I think that there's certain parts of Flint that you'll get plenty of workout. It won't be your choice. Just if you live, that means you ran really fast.
There you go, right? You don't need a gym, just move house. Go even a really bad neighborhood.
So question for you, Mr. Rife. Say if I was to get a set of the solfeggio tuning forks that Campbell has, if I was to play like the 528 frequency through these coils, would that tuning fork then start resonating, vibrating with that same frequency?
So resonance just means the same, right? The coils are not going to be able to adjust themselves. They have their own frequency built in because of the windings, because of the way it's laid out. And so it's got its own specific frequency that's built into the coil that resonates with the body. So that just means it matches. But I'll tell you, if you get a tuning fork and you ring it, and it's 432, and your window is exactly 432, and you press it up against it, the bottom, it will break your glass if the amplitude is high enough, more than the glass can handle. Now, if it isn't 432, you can just tape a penny onto your glass window, and it changes the resonant frequency. So once that Rife worked on these, how do I contact you? You can email me at matthew.rife@realrifemachine.com.
And
I
was going to ask for
live chat.
Oh, sorry. There's obviously, because I've obviously looked into Rife machines too, and frequency generate. There's there's some out on the market, right? There's some that are not too expensive. Are they good? Are they cheap? Like, are they? I mean, obviously, you don't want to promote other people's things, but you know, like obviously, you're sort of top of the range. So what's the difference like in these? Because there's a lot coming out of China.
Yeah, and okay, so take for example John White. He's an electrical engineer. He was in right next to Australia. What is that country? That small country?
New Zealand.
Yeah, he's from New Zealand. Now, then he went to Australia, and then he come to America. Then he went to China, or he went to Canada. Canada ended up kicking him out of the country for the things that he was selling and the claims that he was making that were false. Then when he come back to America, and America kicked him out. Now, if you look up in your country, he's not allowed to go to your country either. So he got kicked out of Australia. He went back to his homeland of New Zealand, and even New Zealand kicked him out. So he's holed up in China right now, where the CCP owns more than 50% of his business. And I've taken these, I've smashed them.
Oh.
I've checked out the components. I've broken so many of them. It's ridiculous because they're all cheap. They don't work necessarily. They're very low powered.
Okay.
But that's the spooky device. Yeah, and China spends a lot of money on
It is.
advertisement.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's obviously not the story that you know that dude's putting out either. He's sort of like, oh, just getting the best for you guys. It's the best place to manufacture. So there you go, quality, right?
Yeah, and this is the only country.
Because I wanted to play with tuning forks, and I looked around and bought some that were like $20, just cheap, for like a couple of them, and they're completely useless for anything apart from, you know, putting in a band or tuning your guitar or something with.
You can break a lot of stuff with them. You just have to adjust the resonant frequency of whatever you're trying to destroy. And it's all about amplitude.
I could be the
It's kind of like, and when I say amplitude, what I'm saying is, you know, if an opera singer is singing and matching the resonant frequency of a wine glass, then it's going to oscillate. It's going to sit there and shake. And by amplitude, if she raises her voice and she increased that compression, decompression so hard that it's hitting this glass and this is resonating, then at some point there's a point of break and it's going to hit that peak and the glass is going to shatter. And this is what Dr. Holland was talking about, Dr. Anthony Holland. I think he's out of Florida. That, you know, he was government funded. It was government grants to be able to do this. He created plasma cells, and he has video of bacteria just breaking open and dying because the amplitude was so high on a certain frequency. But, you know, that it's just like the government. Every time they find out something new, they have cut funding on every bit of this, and they compartmentalize all the knowledge. So whenever you take all this into consideration, how much does the government really know about Rife's machine? I don't think they know a lot at all because they keep on funding research, and I have all of the research that's not compartmentalized.
Nice.
I have a
and so
question.
basically that's how Rife works. You stream into a problem and explode it. Like
I'm not sure if my connection is
cell, like a C cell or something.
Yeah, no, you're good, Jeremiah.
Yeah, we can hear you.
I have a feeling some people can hear me, and some of the audience, maybe Campbell included, are getting little snippets and a choppy voice. So I guess we'll try anyways. My question is about the higher frequency custom output unit. Is that the one that you and I were talking about, the one that I was designing, or is this outside project?
The higher frequency output, I can do it with the coils I'm designing. This is the reason I'm doing a 24-point star. And like you and I have discussed that, you know, the 12 and 24 operate the same, and the 16 point, what I already have, operates differently than those.
That's
now, right. And I agree with you that a 1224 might be better, but it's still going throughout all the math, working it all out and figuring out how to get it to that specific frequency with terminating impedance involved where I'm not overloading things.
Well, think about your Flower of Life 6-point geometry, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to really fit nicely into 16, but it fits really nicely into 12 and 24 and 48. Those are the structures that we see continuously proliferating throughout the universe. are those which follow the natural geometric pattern of what's been recognized and simplified in this graphical thing we call the flower of life, a 2D representation of a fundamental principle for motion of matter and mass in the universe.
Yep. Yeah, I agree.
36-point stars do something very interesting as well. I haven't brought any of those out yet. You just wait. I got something in the works for everybody in the very near future.
Yeah, the 36 really does a lot. Like they've taken PoE coils and didn't they change it into like a ABBA coil? And they've done 36 that were wound on the outside in a certain direction on 36, 32 or 36, I forget.
The only thing when it comes to the PoE is they never got any more out than in. Their results were...
They did, I believe, Gerald, actually, when stacking 2 or 3 of them on top of each other with one coil going into like the outer grid, and then 2 on top connected to a bell ringing circuit or like the jewel thief circuit, and your loads off of that.
So 2 coils.
2 or 3.
Okay.
Yeah, on the 2, they didn't get more out either. So this is a reason that they wound one clockwise and the other one counterclockwise, is so it creates that vortex effect. So whenever we have a vortex up on the Earth, you have it shooting out and you have it coming in at the same time on each pole. And whenever it comes to 3, I think that you can get a little bit more, but it's inefficient. I have found that if you take the coils and you counterwind them like that, because one does suck up more energy they match up a little bit better. So it's kind of like chi charging. Now, whenever you bury it, and you go down to a certain level to where the Earth's natural electromagnetic field, it does create a little bit of a vortex to where it moves it faster and you can get more out of it. So I think that you have to have an outside source to keep on helping it draw.
Yeah, and so from my understanding of it, it's if you have 3 coils, and that the middle coil is the one connected to the outer, it's like a grid, and then the coil on top and the coil underneath are your positive, negative going into the jewel thief circuit and your load that then through induction is able to somehow cheat the system. I believe the Keshi Magrav coils also function in a similar manner to this, from my understanding of it.
Yeah, isn't that acting more like a step-up generator than it is? I don't know. I haven't seen it work like that, so I'm just going to take your word for it, man. I believe you. I don't know about the 2 coil system.
It's experimenting with your own coils down the road, for sure.
In my case, I've done some experiments with different style coils, all involving the same exact copper mass. And since I chose to use the same length of wire and from the same spool, it's just that would pretty much give me a fairly stable consistent comparison for copper mass. So I've taken some bifilar pancakes, some single filar, some bifilar, and some quadrifilar, and I have stacked those in layers to see what my transfer efficiency is. Technically, they contain the same amount of copper, and if you map them out, the turns end up being the same, but the angle of the turns, there's a discrepancy there, and so it's a little strange because you get interesting transfer characteristics of the magnetic and electric flux. What people don't understand about bifilar coils, I think the commonly overlooked aspect compared to a monofilar pancake coil, is you end up with intercapacitance between the windings. And normally this would be a parasitic thing that we don't want. We don't really want capacitance between the windings in most coils because it slows down the signal. But in this case, the bifilar effectively integrates its capacitance, the C part of its LC circuit, into the space between the windings, which means that an individual coil now has a given LC frequency that can efficiently recycle between the capacitance and the inductance of the circuit.
Especially if you're going high frequency, because then the skin effect itself adds to that.
Yeah, with your coils, you've really pushed the boundary in terms of maximizing capacitance and minimizing inductance. You found an interesting way to spread things out so that your polarities end up being self-assisting. You still get yourself a very solid north and south pole, but they're inverted 90 degrees from the direction that you'd expect them to be for a solenoid coil, where you end up with the north in the center and the south on the outside. For example, you basically take in what you should have, north on the top and a south on the bottom that are the only poles that you have. And in some situations, you can effectively rotate those up to 90 degrees so that they're pointing parallel to the plane. And you've changed axial polarization to longitudinal polarization, which is pretty darn interesting. So that whole idea, what it tells you is that the intercoil capacitance is doing a tremendous amount of work. And the reason that's super important is if we take a look at the properties of space, that thing that holds the magnetic flux, allows it to transfer from one field coil to the next. What we find is that if you have a magnetic field present, the permeativity or ability of the electric field to penetrate that same space, if it's the vacuum, it's actually affected by the presence of a magnetic flux. It shouldn't be. I mean, from the classic gauging principle, you wouldn't expect an electric flux to be affected by a static or unchanging magnetic flux. And generally speaking, if they're both unchanging, you won't really see a difference. But if they're both changing at the same time, they actually do affect each other because they both act on the refractive index, that J-curl tensor of space-time, which is your magnetic flux. That's going to affect the permeativity or the ability for the electric field to transmit through space. And by building both these things up in the same direction, you can make a coil which should have, say, 100 nanofarads of effective DC capacitance act as if it's got 1,000 nanofarads. When it comes to deliver that energy back to your load, now all of a sudden you're getting 1,000 nanofarads of energy being delivered back into that system. And the reason is it built up slowly at 100 nanofarads as if it was DC when it comes back, because it's an extremely high transient, a back electromagnetic field. It's now going to have all the energy of that faster influx.
Okay, now that all being said, on my last video, there was an anomaly that I'm not sure if anyone picked up. When I put the coil in the water and turned on the light was brighter in the water than when the coil was in the water than when the coil was out of the water.
I believe that. I missed that, but
I did miss that too. But, I find interesting about that, I better point out, imagine once we're talking geopolymers and that thing is fully embedded, if the increase in mass of the water or capacitance of the surrounding water somehow assisted the operation of that device, when it's a non-corrosive geopolymer with all that density around it, what will it do and how will it respond?
Well, you have to remember also that water holds energy as well. I mean, it's an amazing insulator, but if it has an electrode in it,
to be honest, water is a terrible insulator. That rule really only applies if you're sitting on a test bench and you basically have like 1 volt to test and you're going to check the water's electrical conductivity. It will appear like an insulator. The problem is that water happens to be ionizable. It's not one of those things generally considered, but it's obvious that water is ionizable when you think about the fact that electrolysis works. That's an ionization of water.
Yeah, so whenever you ionize that water like that, I agree. It's gonna help assist within that because you're drawing energy out of that water as well. All of that energy is being attracted to energy and it's catching hold.
Yeah, normally you'd be putting energy into the water with electrolysis. That's why you would end up with extra Brownian motion or heat added. But if you pre-charge the electrodes under a low enough potential and you let the back EMF do the work, then you actually can draw that extra energy out.
Yeah, and this is something that we was talking about before you jumped on. We was talking about this water system that Mike has, and I had him take his EMF meter and hold it near it, and there's a lot of energy that's going into it. Even just he had 3.2 gigahertz running through, or 3.2 at was it microtesla per meter squared. And so that's messing with that water as well. So are all the radio frequencies and all the radio signals that we have going through the air. It messes with people's water. And this is the reason that whenever you restructure the water molecules, then It isn't as heavy, so it doesn't just drop right into your stomach, but it'll release some of that energy. It kicks it out, because if you polarize it, positive repels the positive, and then the water becomes lighter, and it's so much easier to get into your system, into your body. And it's also easier for plants to soak this up and for animals to drink it.
Well, let me mention something about water structuring, and this has to do with Gerald Pollack's exclusion zone. I would imagine that probably a lot of the audience has heard of the exclusion zone, or this easy water at this point. And what this idea basically states is, if you have some liquid water of high purity, let's just assume that this is deionized, distilled, lab-grade water, has nothing else in it, just dihydrogen monoxide. It, if left in a cool, dark place with no physical simulation, will eventually radiate off its energy and tend to destructure. The Brownian motion of its natural ambient environment of room temperature will eventually cause it to dissipate any kind of structure. The exclusion zone doesn't change the physical molecular, or it doesn't change the physical atomic structure of the water. It doesn't ionize it. It doesn't change the way that the electrons bond. What it effectively does is take light, and through a very, very complicated interaction of many simultaneous water molecules at the same time, you end up with an assembly of water molecules aligned with their dipole moments, because they've absorbed the photon over several passes. And so it's the physical structuring of the water, meaning that it's the actual dipole moments aligned by electric field potentials that have absorbed photonic energy that create the exclusion zone. And so this is where the energy is actually stored. It's not actually stored in each individual atom on its own. It's stored in the physical, large scale, many thousands of molecules at once, water assembly, where it forms a semi-crystalline type of arrangement. And it happens to be hexagonal, as we see almost everywhere else in nature. It's just the most efficient packing method. Even though it's still a very ununiformly distributed dipole molecule, it ends up packing itself into this hexagonal grid anyways. So that's...
I would also say, and add, Jeremiah, sorry, that it also goes spiral in the self-organization state too, in that crystalline hexagonal. We
don't see the spirals there. We see a pretty even grid. It tends to lay itself out and self-structure to a line where it will look like everything is nicely aligned in totally straight paths all the way down, sort of like rays. Going through this thing, you'll find that all of your dipole moments are aligned on any of many different axes. And so you can do this with a spiral, though. The spiral isn't the structure of the water that's left over. This vortex of electromagnetic fields is used to concentrate and focus the energy for charge separation, or to basically force align the dipoles out of whatever arrangement they're already scattered in. And when they come back to assemble, they're going to tend to automatically self-align for a moment. If there's enough energy there, they'll stay aligned. If there's not enough energy, they'll become misaligned again. But that's the whole idea, is you're basically adding energy into the larger structure as a whole, not into the individual atoms. It's not, like I said, it's non-ionizing, and then you're going to end up with this sort of superstructure that emerges from it. And it's not going to be in a vortex shape. It's going to be in a fairly crystalline shape, but you can make it with the charge stripping aspect of a vortex, because it concentrates your field fluxes.
So this is an example of electrolysis experiment I did with an exclusion zone of the top half that is just water filled with hydrogen bubbles coming up off of the coil cathode, and then one layer of the white monoatomic, and then one layer of the oxidized copper oxide below the monoatomic.
Nicely done, Bernie.
Yeah. And the picture I had shown before was of that coil was the PoE coil that you guys were referencing earlier, and that we covered in the first episode of the Science of Sound series. And sadly, the Nunez's, for some reason, had to take down all their videos off of their channels, so this stuff isn't up there anymore. But this video is showing their three-phase PoE coil, and that with a ground and a antenna connection in the middle, and then your positive negative going into your load that picks up enough ambient energy to power things as well.
Well, they claim it does. I've taken a look at the PoE geometry, and so has G. And the PoE, from an electrical engineering perspective, that's where I'm coming from, it has so much lossy interwinding capacitance that can't be recycled. It unfortunately ends up wasting almost all of its flux in creating ionization or high potentials that are lossy between the conductors, and it doesn't encode them geometrically in an ideal format. They're all shifted 90 degrees out. So where the idea is sound, the geometry and the style of winding is unfortunately not.
I absolutely agree. In fact, from what I understand, there's a lot of heat that gets created with the PoE. I could be wrong, but from what I've heard and read, the PoE does produce heat. So
Yeah, and that's where a lot of loss of energy goes to.
Yeah, any resistance, right? Then it's no longer cold electricity. You're getting into the resistance and heat loss. I think.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
I found that on PoE coils that you have to have a really large one. You want at least an 8-inch outside diameter with a 2-inch inside diameter to be able to do it to where it doesn't produce that much heat, but it still picks up ionized molecules from the air, and then that'll run through and it produces its own natural frequencies. But within that, you still have radio frequencies that all of this copper is picking up on, and that can run through it as well. This is why it's better to have a power source versus just having it out in the open.
I will give one tidbit of advice for the PoE. If anybody's trying to replicate something that looks like that, whether or not you use that exact geometry, because those things are 3D printed anyways. Most people that make a PoE are probably going to 3D print, if they have a 3D printer or a friend that has one, they're going to print their own little core sections and just assemble it. It's actually a really simple device to replicate because there's not a lot going on there. But you can choose a different number of points and a different number of these individual, circular rings that have cutouts for the wire. And depending on what you end up doing there are better geometries. This is the big piece of advice, though, is it's all about the wire. Don't use magnet wire. The reason I say don't use magnet wire for the PoE is the way windings are packed and wired up at the end, sort of as an afterthought to the entire winding scheme, is you end up having to try to find random series connections to wire this whole thing up, and those series connections could be distributed in any which way. But the interwinding capacitance of magnet wire for a system like that is too lossy. So I'd recommend a conductor 1/3 the total diameter of your wire and 2/3 insulation. So basically your insulation thickness is exactly equal to your conductor thickness. And I would also recommend Teflon coated wire or something on those lines, because it's going to give you a far better performance. Even if the wire is thinner, it's better to go with a thinner conductor, doesn't carry as much current, to get the same number of turns, and use a thicker insulation, just so you can get rid of the parasitic problem that the coil geometry inherently has built into it.
Yeah, sometimes parasitic capacitance works for you. Most times it works against you.
In your case, it works for you. In this case, it's working against us.
I would have to agree.
So I don't know if Adam's still on. Adam does have a quick little demo of a small electrostatic device. It's one that I've been working on for a while. Him and I have talked quite a bit. I'm not sure if...
He's been hopping in and out. He did have decent video connection at the very beginning, and I saw a glimpse of it. I'm pretty stoked on that, the developments with it and what he's shown before. Hopefully,
what he recommended is that you show his video. What he's building there is based on something that I've been trying to come up with for a while, and it's something that both of us have thought about quite a bit long before either of us ever built it. And it's an old idea. There are 4 different patents that we know of which show this device. But what it is, effectively, a variable capacitor powered by a rotary disc. And that rotary disc has one polarity, and the stationary plates, the ones that don't move, they have another polarity. And so what it's doing is, instead of a conventional electrostatic influence machine that has brushes and, you know, corona emitters and neutralizer bars and all this stuff, contact points on the physical pads, the conductors of these discs. What these things do is they use electrostatic field induction with no contact to rotate and move the charge around the systems. And so he's built his own version of that. Recommended that you just play that video. And what we're looking at there is one of those sets of pads is on a small, looks like CD-ROM, and it's on the underside hooked up to a motor. And those pads are the same size as the ones on the top of this large insulating piece of plastic. And so when the pad, and when the underneath pads are, and you can see they're connected with diodes here, so that one ends up being continuously positive, the other one ends up being continuously negative. When there's a difference, the charge flows from one to the other. And so there's a large electric potential that can't escape those plates. It's just sort of stuck on those plates that we're looking at right there. Well, when that passes underneath the plates that are positioned above it, those ones there, it's going to induce an electrostatic potential into those plates. But because there's an insulator between, charge can't actually leap from the moving plates to the stationary plates, which means that the moving plates will never lose their charge, and the stationary plates can only gain and lose whatever induced charge is there. And since it reverses every cycle, they're going to end up as having the same amount of charge, so they'll always be in good balance. I've done a series of experiments based around the idea that I think we can get rid of brushes, and this is what he's replicating here in his little demo video. Now, he hasn't shown the device operating, but he did text me earlier that he tested it, and it does light up neon bulbs, and he's able to get a good electrostatic induction off these plates. So I do have a quick demo, if anyone can see it. Let's see. So, geez, let's see. So what we're looking at here is, this is our underneath disc, and it's looking orange because I've got it ordered in Kapton tape mostly, but there are two little pads here that are exposed, and I have it hooked up to a battery right now, so we can just spin that motor with battery power. So what I want to do is I'm going to line this disc so I can charge it up, and we'll start by charging it, and the rest of these demos will follow that.
Very nice. We got some real science going on. And I should get back to hooking up the Rife coils before this is all done. So I will let you continue, good sir.
All right. Well, at this point, I'm just laying this out and going to connect these just to charge the pads. Took it a little too far. That's okay. All right, so what I have here, this disc is a sanded off CD-ROM. It has 4 induction plates on the top. As you can see, there's an insulator underneath. There's no plates on the bottom. And on the end here is a little flash lamp with a capacitor across it and a neon bulb. Now, these are high voltage diodes, and this is configured as a 4-phase rectifier. So anytime any one of these plates becomes negative, it's going to send all that negative charge down to this electrode here. And anytime one of those plates becomes positive, it's going to send that positive charge up here, and that comes out these 2 alligator clips to these test leads. So to show that it's induction, I have this piece of plastic. I'm just going to set it directly on top. And so we know no charges are going to get around the outside of that and actually leak off. Here we're just going to be dealing with pure induction. And then I'll go ahead and power that up. Oh, it looks like I've already shorted the damn thing out. Well, I'll get rid of the plastic because I did puncture the dielectric earlier, which was unfortunate. Let's go ahead and power that back up. I'm going to recharge it. I think puncturing that little area there affected it more significantly than I was expecting.
Awesome work either way.
Right? Real science, real developments, doing the work constantly in the lab.
It never ends.
An alchemist's work is never done.
Even when it's done, it's not done.
I mean, we have revisions for a reason.
Hopefully that's enough. Geez, these clips really just do not want to stay on here, do they? There we go. So again, that's no contact, no brushes. It's coming through the electrostatic conduction to the plates. Here was the weird part. When I checked to see what the load was on that moving disc, and I had this hooked up to a power, instead of a battery, I had this hooked up to a precision power supply, gives me my voltage and my current readout. Whether or not I had this load hooked up, I couldn't see any load difference on the moving disc. And this system uses no electromagnetic fields to produce the power from the high voltage output. So what that effectively tells me is there's a decoupled aspect of the electrostatic output generated based on RPMs only that has nothing really to do with the input watts dissipated in the prime mover. And because my prime mover just natively draws, due to air currents and surface friction, it natively draws about 76 milliamps in this example here, although the motor with no load draws about 10 milliamps. What I could effectively do is exchange that with an electrostatic motor and increase my spacing to get rid of the air currents. Could even run it in a vacuum chamber, and we would end up with a system that was as efficient in rotating as it was in generating power. And since I don't see any kind of loading aspect between these two sides, I really want to find out what my exchange efficiency rate is. I wonder if there's enough power to run this one. Probably just discharged it by touching the disc. Yeah, I did. Wow, I really discharged it.
How much does it increase your load on the motor that's spinning it whenever
Well, that's
you have
exactly
the
what I'm
inductance
saying.
going?
From the test measurements, it doesn't
Oh,
increase it at all.
wow.
And that's what I'm still trying to figure out is, you know, where is the actual energy going? We know that it takes a certain amount of energy from the brushes, the frictional contacts, and the air that's being produced in terms of motion from this rotating disc powered from a DC supply. All that's going to take energy. That's mechanical losses. We're moving air. We're producing sound. The motor is increasing in temperature because it's just simply rotating with no power being drawn from it, with no upper disc or anything. But what's weird is when I draw power from it, it makes seemingly no difference on the power draw from the motor. Now, it's an extremely small motor. There it is. This is a little CD-ROM motor, and so if you guys remember those little Walkman players and whatnot, the original CD-ROMs with ESP, which was just basically RAM for CD-ROMs. So those little motors don't draw much. They're extremely efficient. They're designed to run off either two AA's or a little boost system for a very long time, and that's why I'm using them, because they're designed to have a long lifespan and also have a very low frictional input. They're not the
So
best.
it would make sense to me that where the one is spinning and the other one's stationary, it shouldn't even really matter, but it's probably polarizing your pads just a little bit. And then Lenz's law kind of takes over for that electrostatic charge to be able to flow through it. And that may be what's helping push it to go forward too, to where you're not creating more of a draw on that motor.
In this case, I don't really think that we can have any effects from Lenz's law, since this is an entirely non-magnetic system. It's purely based on electrostatic induction, so there's no magnetic polarization to induce a Lenz style effect. or any kind of draw in that nature. That's why I'm going with electrostatics, because these discs, they're not going to be they're not going to magnetically respond. These are just CD-ROMs, and there's no metal left on them except for the metal that I've explicitly placed on them, and copper is non-ferrous metal. So we wouldn't really deal with Lenz's law much in this case, because the induction on these pads isn't coming from a magnetic flux, it's coming from the electric field. That's specifically why to study electrostatics, because we are not dealing with Lenz's law. We're dealing with something that's a lot older.
Yeah, it makes it. I have no idea then why it wouldn't create more draw whenever you're doing your inductance on it. That's wild. Dude, that's genius.
I could explain to some extent why some of the energy is not being seemingly drawn or lost. That's because it's being returned. If you think about having two capacitors that have, some amount of charge in them. Let's just say we have two capacitors. They're both completely dead, but they're the exact same value. Let's say they're perfect capacitors. They have no losses. They're ultra fast ESR, whatever. Let's say we charge one of them up and we have the other one that's dead. Well, if we just exchange power between those two capacitors and we don't have any other losses in the circuit, then we never actually lose any charges. We've just simply moved where those charges are, but we've never killed the dipole. We've never taken a place that has a lack of electrons and permanently, and it just polarized it by giving those electrons. We've never dissipated the extra electrons on the negative plates and allowed them to flow to the positive plate. So we still end up with the same amount of charge the entire time. The reason for why there's less draw in this case, I think, is because we're exchanging charge between plates. So when this plate is negative and this plate is positive, for example, these two plates have some capacitance, and it would take mechanical motion to pull these plates away from these two plates because they're already electrostatically attracted. These two plates are neutral at that point, so they're not electrostatically repelled. They're also electrostatically attracted, but not as strongly. So if this rotor carries itself forward to the point where instead of being underneath these two plates like this, it's now underneath these two plates, 90 degrees from this position, what's going to end up happening is the charge that was trapped, the positive charge here and the negative charge here, is going to actually be moved by induction to these two plates so that these two go down to zero and these two go up to that same potential. As you see, we've still not lost any potential. We've never actually disconnected the entire thing. We've just simply moved the charge from these two to these two. Now, if we continue to do that all the way around, we're never actually losing charge. And so, depending on the load, in this case, it's a direct current load, we would expect it to draw some power, but it turns out the phase lag from this dielectric is giving us an advantage. There is actually a way to optimize this, where we tune a inductive circuit that can operate at very, very high impedance. We're talking ridiculously high impedance, huge number of primary to secondary ratio windings, maybe 10,000 to 1. Crazier than like a audio matching transformer for crystal radio. And what we can do is set the frequency so that this plate and this plate section, they phase the voltage between themselves in a way that ends up arriving with this plate having the perfect opposite charge before these other plates have a chance to rotate into place. And what that will allow us to do is draw these forward in the direction that we actually want to move them for the sake of creating a charged motion between these two. And because we're never actually losing any potential in this circuit, we're just simply exchanging the position of where that potential sits. We can do interesting things with it, like send it through loads and allow it to be stored temporarily and put it back in at just the right time. All that will be more complicated than a simple 4-phase bridge rectifier like on this one, but this is what we're checking out now, because mathematically there's not actually a reason for why this is impossible to work, and the work function of motion from rotation, it doesn't compute correctly in terms of the output potentials that we're getting versus the motor power draw. There should be inherently more load, but there's just simply not showing up on the meter. And so we've got to figure out why that is.
Yeah, it makes no sense why it's not having more of a draw up on that motor, on the drive motor. Have you tried to run these in like set bearings in between the two plates and see if the top one is moving any, to see if it is actually having an effect upon the polarity to where it pushes and pulls?
You mean, does the bottom rotating plate drag the top plate along?
Yeah.
Yes, it does. It does slightly.
So it should have more draw.
It should have more draw, but it drags it with such an incredibly insignificant amount of energy that I'm really surprised with how minimal the return is. But here's the funny thing, like I mentioned with the tuned LC circuits, and depending on your loads, you can also get it to motor. So you could, say, have these plates charged and disconnect the motor power completely, and you could induce an alternating current high voltage into these plates back and forth and electrostatically induce rotation into this plate. And with a tuned LC, that's exactly what we intend to do. By having current flow through the tuned LC and delivering a phase forward current, or phase forward potential, excuse me, by converting the current into a potential, then we should be able to get the system to self-motor to some extent as well.
So even with this, if you're actually dragging as it goes up, you could build a step generator out of this just by stacking plates and letting them freely flow.
You could, but the idea with this system was to keep it as simple as possible. One disc and one rotor seemed like an impossible challenge. I've looked at just every electrostatic influence machine throughout history that I could find a picture of, or find a diagram of, or drawing, or anything, and I've not seen a pure induction machine with absolutely no brushes anywhere in the circuit. But the reason for that, I think, is actually really simple. You see, only 20 years ago, these diodes didn't exist. They're a fairly new thing, and the fact that I can use them on both moving discs and stationary discs is a brand new idea that hasn't been tried so far as I've been able to find out there. And so, because we can revisit a very, very old idea, the original idea of the discovery of modern electricity through electrostatics, we can now revisit this old idea with new semiconductor components and eliminate some of the frictional parts and do new kinds of experiments that we could never do before, all thanks to the adaptation of modern technology. And so that's what I'm doing. Go ahead.
Sorry about that. Do you think the electrostatics that's being imparted to the disc now is helping with that spin for the motor, like your efficiency?
If I phase it correctly, yes. If I phase it wrong, no. There is a way to make the load draw power from the motor. If I phase delay it by 90 degrees, it will draw power from the motor, because then it's actually going to be very conventional in terms of its characteristic loading conditions. There we can accept 25% loss from the backwards attraction, and we also increase our output current. Right now we're accepting about a 3% loss, which for some reason is not showing up on the meter. It should be, but it's not. And that could be
a whole bunch of people ask what kind of diode that is, Jeremiah. Sorry.
This diode is called the 2CL71, and you can buy it on eBay and Amazon. It's rated for 8 kilovolts at 5 milliamps. It's one of many 2C series diodes produced in China. And this particular one is nice because it's only got a diameter of like 2.8 millimeters and a length of about 8 millimeters. So it's a pretty compact component, and they can take a pulse power of up to about 2 amps, which makes them really, really useful. But what the best part of the 2CL71 diode series is, they are some of the highest frequency high voltage diodes that I have ever tested. They are incredible. I've operated a specific offset of the 2CL series up to 2 megahertz, and they will still operate. They're not rated there. You look at the data sheet, and it's extremely simplified. It's like a 1 or a 2-page data sheet, depending on which one you're looking at. It's extremely simple, and it doesn't list off these characteristics, but they happen to be accidentally incredibly fast. So I've ordered them in droves and used them for all kinds of experiments, and actually replace voltage multipliers in circuits where there's a Tesla coil present, because I can rectify the Tesla coil directly with these things. The 20 kV versions, the 12 kV versions, they are not as fast. I just want to point that out. You can go with a higher current, higher voltage version, the PN junction diode stack. It's not as quick as these. For some reason, these are just a lot faster, and I have a feeling it has to do with the very long and narrow PN junction stack, because all of these high voltage diodes, these are actually stacks inside here, inside that tiny little black chassis of each of those diodes is an array of lower voltage diodes pushed into series, and these ones happen to have a very thin core, so their capacitance is incredibly low. And I think the only thing which really slows down a semiconductor junction is the capacitance between those layers. So because these have such a small cross section, they happen to be pretty quick. And
Bernie, I put a link to the Amazon that's on it right now in the YouTube chat. If you want to pull up that data sheet, it's very interesting.
Do you mind posting it actually in the private chat? It would be easier for me to access.
Yeah, let me see if I can text it to myself.
I'm just certainly hoping I got that number right. Well, I guess Raf pulled up the data sheet, so must have gotten the number right from memory. Yeah, actually, the 2CL71, that's what's in this charging multiplier. This thing has it's like a 40 or 45 kV output per side or something like that, and it's a split rail, so one of those sides is positive, one of those sides is negative, so I get pretty decent long arcs, about 3 or 4 inches between those. Just as a reference of what it can do for a practical purpose. But that's all being run off that same series diode there.
All right, it's in private chat.
And I just found what YouTube channel you posted it on. It was mine. Sorry. Thank you. And for all to see... see Amazon diodes. Oop, 12p. So the link is now in the live chat for everybody. Anyone interested in getting and playing with these amazing new pieces of technology. All right, hour and 15 minutes in. Ominous, good sir, do you want to take it away with the intermission and anybody that, yeah.
Only if it's all right with the audience, because we've been learning so much that we might need a break from another form of sound frequency. It's ominous. Hang on, let me tune this frequency. Shit! Hang on. Yeah. Yeah. Now let's scratch. Yes. Come on. Rewind that. Shish kebab. Oh. Come on, you get that. Come on. Just with the volume. What do you think about that? What do you think about that? What do you think about that? Transformation. What do you think about that? Let's change again. No. Hang on. Hang on. Talk about compact discs. They always have these skipping problems. It's brought to you by Duff Beer. There is no other. Get over here. Shut up, Lee. That's what. Just a science is just. It's a science. It's just Jeremiah is a genius, and everyone here damn well knows it. Just build. Yeah. Now I'm gonna head it right back to you. Where are you there, Bernie? Ominous beatbox. Check me out. Hope you didn't mind. I don't want to like get too much into it.
That was amazing, brother.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thanks. I'm gonna shut the hell up now.
Oh, you don't have to, but love it, and feel free always to ask any question as well, good sir.
All right. Oh no, I like listening. There's always more to take in there. Sometimes want to encourage that learning. All right, back to you there, Burn.
Oh, thank you, sir. And I've actually learned how to edit clips out of these streams now, so there will be a few ominous straight beatboxing videos coming out from our last live streams as well as this one very soon. And the general consensus is, damn, that's unreal. Voice chemist, like an alchemist, a voice chemist. Amazing. All right. So Mr. Rife, I have plugged in the coils. How far apart should I have them? Like right now, they're only about 3 feet. Your scan like optimal, I think, was like 8.
That's just to fill the entire room, because after 6 feet on the radius, the EMFs, it does the same thing as sound. They drop down in power the further they travel. So you can just set one on each side of you. Technically, you could put them in the box and you can run them both. But you kind of want them a little bit far apart so it does create Faraday rotation in the middle.
Perfect. I can do that. That is why you include a nice long wires with them.
And if you look, there's a little clear case that has a neodymium magnet in it.
It does. That must still be in the case then.
It probably is.
Yeah.
I don't even know if you're legal to carry that case around in Canada anymore, because it looks like a gun case.
Oh dear. Don't get me canceled now, Mr. Wright. We've got the little neodymium in the is this the guy?
Yep, that's it.
Okay.
So what you're going to do is you're going to download Z app. I think you already did that on your phone. And if you plugged in the amplifier, everything else should have already came hooked up. And it's already like a plug and play to where you just had to pull the amp out, hook up the power supply, and everything else was hooked. Now take your phone, turn on the amplifier all the way up, and you'll see a blue light flashing. And it's hi-fi audio or FOSI audio. They switch up the names sometimes. And then you just connect your phone via Bluetooth. you just play your frequencies. But you want to play anywhere between 20 and 40 hertz, and it'll make that little neodymium magnet start moving around. And that's what tells you that they're actually on.
Okay. Well, you overestimated my abilities because I have yet to switch to my new Galaxy 20, and I'm still on my shitty Galaxy 6. So I have not downloaded it. Can I download it either on my tablet or on this laptop?
You can anything that's mobile. You can use Apple Air or Android, and you can download Z app.
Okay, I will get it on the Samsung tablet momentarily. So while I do that, anybody else have any questions? No, maybe. Campbell, are you there? Are you frozen? Oh, he moves. He's alive.
No, I am sorry. I'm alive. I was just reading the comments, so I have no idea what's going on. What's going on? Hello, great beatboxing ominous.
Right, always an amazing show. So I'm setting up the coils right now, and about to download the app that plays the frequencies. So I'm taking a minute to figure out this technology
stuff by
thing.
Jeremiah.
Indeed,
Is
right?
Jeremiah gone? No.
No, he's right next to you. You got
someone mentioned
on the right and Jeremiah on the left.
Check 1, 2. I don't know if this is coming through. We just had a power surge. Actually, we had a series of power surges. Sequentially, from the sound of it, what ended up happening is a tree branch loaded down with snow eventually fell across the power lines. We heard 2 distinct and loud arcs that lasted approximately, the first one about 600 by 0.65 seconds, and the second one about 0.78 seconds. And then so everything is reset. I'm going to have to jump off again here and go deal with the power surge and resetting equipment here.
Fair enough, brother. Thank you for joining in and blessing us with that live demo.
Hey, Jeremiah, you still there? Too late.
Too late. Sounds like he's having Canadian problems. Right? Okay.
Snow. Oh. Snow.
Snow. That lovely 3-foot thing in my backyard.
So Texas Bread, this is nothing more than just a FOSI audio amp, like a home audio amp. And these are the amps that I was able to test with, and up on my windings, terminating impedance, and everything, that these work the best to produce that actual frequency that you want it to run at.
We're having more requests of beatboxing intermissions, so I have to get the password, my Wi-Fi hooked up on my tablet. So if there's no other questions, Ominous, you want to do another little 5 minutes?
Yes, as long as people don't mind me being like a repeating record. Hang on. Don't get it. It's oh shit. Turn Nemo's effects off. Good news, everyone. Good news, everyone. So don't mind me. I'm just like just fucking just messing around. Whoa, I hope I'm gonna stop right there, but I mean, feel free to jump right in. Jump, shit.
So be honest, do you do that just constantly at home, like you're making eggs or something, just beatboxing the whole time?
Sometimes, but I just have to make sure I avoid the the blowback from the splatter from the eggs, unless I have like a cover. But sometimes.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Oh, thanks, man. But it's I just do it here and there. I've just been doing it for a long time, so it just comes as second nature, you know? That kind of jazz.
We can tell you are incredibly skilled. Everybody in the chat is commenting on your circular breathing, and yeah, it's very impressive.
Oh no, thank you. I'm. It's all about you guys, really. I'm just kind of like the novelty, the jester, so to speak, in the middle, just trying to learn all this crazy science you're dropping on us. It's wild. Really, the kudos to you.
It's the ADD break.
It's always good at this point in time to just say, yes, it's all about this science. But thank you.
Real science.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. And in any case, what other experiments may be going on? I know that there's been, did you hear about this? I know it might be a little off topic, but they found those 6 crazy galaxies that apparently shouldn't have existed because they've existed apparently 500 to 700 million years after the Big Bang. And they don't know why and how they formed because they shouldn't have formed that fully complete in that amount of time. Did you hear about that? That recent discovery with the Webb telescope?
Oh, it's honestly been hard keeping track of everything coming out of the James Webb Space Telescope. It's just
nuts.
Constantly.
It's amazing. It's really opening some doors here. I'm actually still I'm interested in what's on Enceladus, that moon of Saturn. They want to go explore it, and there's a whole bunch of stuff underneath. You know, like these oceans that are used with methane and all sorts of weird stuff like that. That's what I've heard. That's the recent stuff I've heard. I like that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah, there's somewhere you have geysers of hydrocarbons. It's crazy.
It's nuts. Yeah, so they're gonna find future ways to explore that. But anyways, looks like BurnEye is back.
They're gonna find reasons to liberate Titan and give it some freedom, eh? Give
Maybe.
Titan some freedom
Titan too.
To go get those hydrocarbons from Saturn's moon, is it? I think.
I just want to fly there.
Me too. You and me both.
We're happy with the NO3 on the moon for now.
Like Gerald, I expect to be picked up one day in the future by you and Jeremiah in some sort of.
Oh, you know it.
Flying
craft. We're working on it.
Right? It will be epic when it happens. Okay, so My stupid tablet is now just updating and being a pain in the butt. So I will see if I can get Google Apps on my laptop. Problem of switching over devices.
You're muted, Matthew.
Oh, there it is. Yeah, if you do this on your laptop and you don't divert the output from your speakers to the coil, then it's just going to play the frequency. Also, if you do divert it to the coils, it's going to play our voices through the coils. And that's not good. Like, don't mess with frequencies that you don't know what they are.
Very good information to have. So I will definitely not put it on my computer. And yay, it's up. It's at the point where I can. All right. Back momentarily. Let you continue. Hopefully we get this.
So you're saying we shouldn't play death growls through our right machines?
I mean, you know, the nefarious part inside of me wants to say yes, you definitely should, but you know, the actual true information of you not getting hurt is don't do that.
Yeah, playing Rage against the machine is not an option.
They're kind of weak, so I think that they're very, very low frequency.
Oh, well, there you go.
But yeah, I'd like to send you guys some PDFs. It's on patents, because I heard what you guys was talking about the new experiments, and it brought this up in my mind, that there's patents that claim to have communication abilities through quantum entanglement.
I mean,
like it's instantaneous. I'm glad you bring that up. Sorry.
Yeah, China's made these claims that they can communicate instantaneously through quantum entanglement. And if you guys don't know what quantum entanglement is, then you have two different atoms, and it doesn't matter if you're 80 billion light years apart. It's still instantaneous communication between the two. And this is what I was working on to be able to disprove the gravitational wave paper that they put out that won the Nobel Prize in 2017.
they don't actually have to be just atoms. They can be molecules, but
Yeah.
you want it to be something like a buckyball or something.
Well, they're doing this stuff with graphene oxide, and they're saying that they can send radio waves into graphene oxide, and two molecules of graphene can talk to each other.
Oh, so it's like two cans on a string, but the string is the other.
Yep. And well, they're doing it through nanotech, and they have all the patents out there. There's about 6 or 7 of them.
Very nice. So how should we get these files? Did you say like there's a site they can be downloaded, or do they need to be sent direct links like on a Google Drive?
Wow. That could be very good or very bad, that technology, couldn't it? Especially if you happen to have something in your body at the moment.
Well, let's not say too much that will get this stream taken down.
Yeah, if you look in the private
Exactly, I'll
chat,
stop
then
with
you'll
that.
see. Yeah, if you look at the private
Yeah,
chat,
definitely can't bring up that conversation out live.
yeah, you'll see who owns
Ah,
them.
right. Okay. Yeah, right. Yeah.
But
Cool.
that is
Well,
very concerning, and goes back to Campbell's original comments. So let's just focus on beating that nefarious possibility.
Going forward, new
Building-
technologies.
Pumping the right vibes.
Definitely don't want to pump death growls through them, no.
Accepting
Pump
all
what
of
through them?
those.
Death growls, like death metal bands,
Yeah, you don't want to play Megadeth, but you can play Rage Against the Machine. We figured out.
That's hilarious, actually. I bet.
The
How's
best
Bob
is Twisted
Marley
Sister,
feel?
man. We're not going to take it. Now you better take it.
Did you hear the new version of D.
Enough
Snyder's
said.
"We're Not Going to Take It," dedicated to that child that got cancer? I think it was actually to a lot of children that he dedicated it to. He slowed the tempo right down. It's totally like a ballad now. It's interesting.
What?
Yeah, you have to check it out. Just look it up. D. Snyder's "We're Not Going to
Wow.
Take It."
Because I know that they did like a group thing of it, didn't they? They got like all these sort of metalheads together and they all sang it together for some fundraiser. Was that it? I've never watched
they
it,
did
but
it
I've
really
seen it
well.
pop up.
I don't know if the group got together for the fundraiser, but I know D. Snyder released it, and when he did, it was super slow, more like a ballad. So,
Wow.
And
I'm just trying to imagine that. We're not going to take it. Oh no!
yeah, it's very
How do you
slow.
ballad that song?
You have to check it out. He pulls it off. It's different. It's different. So I managed
I will have a
to.
look at it.
We have a mutual friend that allowed me to take a look at a hard drive, so to speak. I managed to get some information on Tesla towers on Wardenclyffe. In fact, yeah, from September 3rd, 1911. It's the New York American magazine. And the title is Tesla's Wireless World System to Turn Earth into One Gigantic Dynamo. It's some pretty interesting information.
I believe that.
If you want to let me share screen, we could do a quick view of it.
Yes, please.
There's way too much to read, though. So,
you just have to hit share screen.
share screen. Okay, hang on here.
Or present. It's at the bottom. It should say present.
Okay. Don't need the audio. Okay. I don't know if you're seeing that. Let's see here.
No. Oh, yeah. Oh, no. No, it hasn't popped up yet.
All right. How about that? No? Let me figure this out.
So at the bottom, it should say present, and then you go up to window or tab, depending on what you want to share, then click on it.
Oh, okay. Now I got it. Can you
There
see
we
that?
Boom.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Very nice. One gigantic dynamo. And dynamo is for collecting DC power, correct? Not the AC current?
I believe so. I believe a dynamo is more like an alternator than it is a generator, so to speak. So this goes really fast. So I have to sort of start and stop. And as you can see, the Tesla high frequency oscillator. And it goes into talking about in very descriptive detail about how Tesla built the tower and all the little the gauges of cable, the distance, how he did it. It's amazing. I'm not sure if you really want me to read this. It would take a while.
Some select parts if you want.
Okay, I'm looking for a very specific part. Sorry here if it's taking a bit here. I'm just looking. I should have had it keyed up. I apologize. I am not finding what I was looking for. But as you can see, this is really quick. Maybe I should do this, set this up as a presentation for you.
Yeah.
And we can do this another time because...
Well, give us a sampling at least, but 100% we should do a full broadcast of it or presentation in the future.
Okay. The fundamental principles of Tesla's global wireless system. The three fundamental principles underlying the operation of Tesla's global wireless telecommunication systems are: the low-frequency alternating current can be transmitted through the inhomogeneous Earth with low loss because the net resistance between antipodes of the Earth is considerably less than 1 ohm. Nikola Tesla and the diameter of the Earth, discussion of one of the many modes of operation of the Wardenclyffe Tower by K.L. Karam and J.F. Karam, PhD, 1996. This is a breakdown of what Tesla has done. The electrical displacement takes place predominantly by electrical conduction through the more conductive regions. An example, the oceans, lakes, metallic ore bodies, and similar subsurface structures. That's kind of like electroculture. How when in electroculture they use galvanized steel and they bury it 8 inches to 12 inches below the top surface of the soil, and they run that up a pole, connecting it to the north pole of that top part of the pole, and the south pole sort of stays open, and they use that for growing food through electricity, and it's called electroculture. What I just read there reminds me of that, and how Nikola Tesla uses that for his induction. I don't know if you wanted me to continue here. Number 2, the low frequency. Sorry, go ahead.
Yes, please. Especially this electroculture stuff. It all ties into our next series and episodes. So this is a good first taste.
I actually have a quite a bit of electroculture stuff put aside for that purposefully. So there is some more stuff coming up for that, definitely. As far as the wireless Tesla tower here goes, I'll read these next 2 points and then we'll continue on. Number 2, the low frequency, high voltage alternating current can be transmitted through the atmosphere with low loss. The electric displacement takes place by electrostatic induction, electrical conduction, or the combination of these two. Number 3, the Earth possesses a naturally existing negative charge, or a DC electrostatic potential, on the order of 400,000 volts, with respect to the conducting region of the atmosphere beginning at the elevation of about 50 kilometers. And near the Earth's surface, there is an ubiquitous downward directed E field of about 100 volts per meter. So the Tesla coil transmitter creates a disturbance in this charge, which manifests itself in an annular distortion of the background electric field around it. Basically, like, he's disturbing the field around it and then allowing that field to go back into balance. And when doing so, he's collecting that energy and redirecting it. So that's just a taste of some of what's going to come. So I'll stop sharing now, Bernie, and give it back to you.
Do you mind if I touch on that really quick?
Please do.
Yeah, so wireless electricity is already working. And if you make 2 coils at like 912 kilohertz, and then you make your transmitter at 5.3 gigahertz or megahertz, which is the exact resonant frequency of the Earth for that electrical current to flow, then you can shoot it at the speed of light from point A to point B. You just have to have 2 coils. You have to have a coil on each side, one sending, one receiving. And you can build like just a simple primary and a simple secondary to be able to do all this. This is from the kid, what's his name? Peterson or Parkinson.
It's funny you say that about the coil, because one of the parts that I'm not sure most people talk about or even know about when it comes to Wardenclyffe Tower and Tesla's design was that he had a mass amount of copper buried underneath the Wardenclyffe Tower, and he was using that as an oscillator. So there were 2 coils involved.
So what they were trying to do... Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So I have some of Tesla's notes too, mixed in with Roy's, and I have some notes on this, original Tesla notes, and I'm going to send to Dr. Parker. But what they were trying to do, they actually got blackballed by all, like the government and everyone else, because it was Rife and Tesla working together to use the Wardenclyffe Tower to take the natural electromagnetic field of the Earth, make it pulsate and send out signals all through space to be able to contact aliens.
Yeah, Tesla goes into it in one of his books, talking about how he spoke to Mars. So it's interesting.
Yeah, but the wireless electricity already works. And, that's a big point. But the second largest point on this, it was another electrical engineer that I was talking to on the phone. And he said, Matt, I think that I can make a decentralized internet. And so the only thing you'd have to do is get a 5.3 megahertz tower that you build. And I actually have a picture of one that he built. He did it on a 3D printer. And you send the electrical signal through the Earth, and you modulate that signal with your data.
Interesting.
Yeah, so these are kind of the things that I want to be able to move into. Like on year 5, I have med beds on my list, and it's going to work with quite a few different technologies involved. I've been talking to Jeremiah about it. I'm hoping to be able to get Jeremiah to work with me on all of this, to be able to do the design, tune all the coils, make everything happen. And then I'll be able to hire like doctors and things of that nature to come in and finally tune. Like if you have a broken femur, you can, in theory, take all the platelets, all the plasma, all the calcium, and extra mitochondria within your body and get it around the femur and and this is only theorizing, people, a 6-week healing process down to like 3 weeks probably for the first stage of tests, then tuning it and getting it down to a week. Get a similar ringing off the Earth. I don't know what that means. They were trying to do many different things. If you're talking about like Tesla and Rife, so they were going to send the electromagnetic frequencies out to pulsate outside of the Earth. And like I was saying earlier, EMFs can travel through the vacuum of space. So they were trying to send signal and contact aliens to bring them in.
And sorry, it's just downloading. It says it's 2 out of 8 steps completed installing the ZApp app. It's what was that top ZApp app? It said Rife frequencies on it.
Yeah, that's it. Yep.
Very nice. Just waiting on my great Canadian wireless internet. Yay.
You'll be waiting a long time.
Ominous. You want to fill a few more minutes?
Only if it's all right.
Really trying to get your
all right. It just depends. I'm just like to. Where did I put that last? Oh, it's right here. Oh, something is being put on the screen. What could it possibly be? It's BurnEye, and of course, all the antics of this wonderful science. Slices, dices, cuts julienne fries. But wait, there's more. Yes, a lot of these things are based on sound frequency. Hopefully, these amount of hertz aren't really disturbing your drums. Like maybe some drum and bass. Whatever that says. Yeah. Bernie, look at him. Oh, hang on. Like 2160 degrees, 432 hertz. Oh, back to you, Bernie. I gotta pass this back on to you, man. This is all about you guys.
That was epic, brother. And it's
Well,
all
on the spot.
about
Sorry, I just like to be on the spot when I need to be.
Hey, Bernie, would you like to see the electroculture book that I want to show for when we do this?
Yes, please.
Okay, so go back to share. How do I do that?
Present at the very bottom again.
That's right.
And
Okay.
we will be also covering the full little mini electroculture book that Sherry Ives sent me as well, and all the experiments in it. But I'm guessing Gerald's is a little bit thicker. Here we go. Ooh, look at that.
This is from one of the original scientists, inventors that got into electroculture. Justin Christofalo. I might be saying that wrong. But, oh, and I got to give a shout out to Terran Earthling. He's awesome at what he does.
Absolutely.
Okay, so
shout out to Terran Earthling and the amazing drive of information and archive that he's been creating.
Yes, absolutely. So this here goes into how they used to do it back in the, I believe this book is from 1916, but I think it goes as far back as 1864 when they were doing electroculture. And some of the things that they grow is just amazing.
so early into the supposed invention and discovery of electricity, they were already putting it into the ground?
Well, you know what they were doing? They had like they would either do it on the top of their houses, or they'd have a separate pole, and on top of the pole they had this. It looked like a rake, but it was almost like it looked almost like a rake or a menorah, and they would collect positive energy from it. And the way that they used the galvanized steel that they would bury into the earth underneath the garden, they would collect telluric currents from it, at least according to these documents that we'll have. So here is the setup. Vibrating wires into the action of, I can't see that it's behind Google Documents piece. Number 2, electricity of the floating air carried by clouds. So as you can see, this here is the top of a 4x4 post. So what they had, I believe these wires here were the south, and the pole here was north. And what they did is this pole, you would have a galvanized piece of steel that came off of here, wire. And I'm not going to bullshit you, pardon the expression, but I don't know exactly how this setup works. I'm still doing the research on it, but it's absolutely amazing, the outcome and the pictures that they show from it.
Hey, like there's just so much into it. They suppressed the heck out of this technology and the importance of it in creating this artificial famine scarcity reality by hiding all of these technologies, energies, and just science.
There was someone that actually built one of those boxes you were talking that you were just showing, and what it does, it clears out acres and acres of field for all of these outside radio frequencies or electric that's running through the earth, because power plants, they'll run high current flow all the way down these lines, and they wanted to run directly into the ground and let it run back to the power station, and they would recollect it. Now, all of this causes a lot of electricity in the ground, and it hurts these plants, so they weren't allowed to do it. But there's a lot of people that are still hooked up on like farmers electric, to where they ground out that way.
Well, the way that this states that they did it a little differently than what is being done today. There's actually a gentleman on YouTube that has a whole group of people that are into electroculture, and they use copper. They don't use galvanized steel, and all they do is they put the copper in the soil itself and allow the soil to be generated from natural currents. I have a slightly different system that I've married the old electroculture and the new electroculture, and that's something that I'll be showing in the demonstration when we get together next. And this is the setup that they had generally for grapes. I have a lot more on electroculture that I could show, actual pictures of gourds that have been grown and pumpkins. I believe the largest pumpkin was 768 kilograms, and that was due to electroculture. So I'll stop. Sorry?
That is next level stuff, and it's sounding like the exact same sort of results that I've seen with a lot of people working with the ormus and the GANs and stuff in agriculture as well. And for instance, my 1 6-foot lettuce that I grew this last year, that I could only imagine once combining these different techniques and sciences, technologies into it together. Like, are we going to be growing pumpkins the size of houses? You know, Princess Cinderella will actually have a carriage made out of a real pumpkin that will actually fit her.
In some of the notes that I've found, they've done studies on hemp, and some of the hemp that they've grown has been 16 feet tall with double the flowering output. Wow. And some of the They go into wheat, and wheat's gotten 40% more output than what it would normally when electroculture wasn't involved. So there's a lot we're going to get into in the very near future that I could present.
It also reduces the need for fertilizer by 75%.
Yes, absolutely it does. You were right about the nitrogen. When it creates its own nitrogen through electricity, it's a little bit more complicated than that. It doesn't just create it, but through the process of electricity being passed back and forth between the Earth and the atmosphere, it I would say it sort of creates it.
Well, I have a device to where I run plasma at certain frequencies, and it splits the nitrogen molecule into nitrogen atoms. So that's natural fertilizer. It's the same thing that happens within our atmosphere whenever lightning strikes. It splits nitrogen. People think their grass grows because it rained a little bit. No, it's the actual nitrogen splitting off that's creating the fertilizer falling to the earth.
That's actually fascinating and sounds a lot like electrolysis in water in many ways.
Yeah, so on this technology, I have a couple of different things done. It's a little bit of electroculture, and I have a few different techniques built into it. And it's able to produce all of these results every single time. Then it doesn't hurt the DNA structure of the plant. It doesn't mess with any of the fruiting, and it's still all organic upon testing.
Awesome sauce. That's what we want. We want to get this type of tech out to everyone. We want everybody putting it in their gardens. We want everybody growing in so much abundance that you have to give your food away. That's the goal. So get it out with Rife Technologies. I'll get it out on my end. We'll give it to BurnEye. We'll give it to Campbell. We'll get everybody getting it out. Get it out around the world. Let's get the
all
word
around the realm.
Yeah, I actually have a star that's on my online store, and it's bare copper, and it's a 7-point star that I've tuned because I also have a couple of different gauges of magnetic wire on it that's oxygen-free, double enameled. And this is like the perfect tuning and the perfect setup to be able to collect the positive ions out of the air, run them into the ground. But then the magnetic wire on the outsides, they're tuned specifically to be able to pick up these ions and run electrical charges all through the wires on AC. And they keep on switching back and forth, and those turn into electromagnetic fields naturally. So, and you cannot burn off that electricity unless it goes out in an EMF. So therefore, you're hitting the top of the plant and you're hitting the bottom.
That's huge.
So, I mean, just getting a piece of copper and putting it in the ground next to a plant, or even maybe coiling it around and just experimenting, I guess, is the way to go if you want to try it out. Or if you're an electrical wizard.
That's an amazing start for anybody. Just take bare copper, stick it in the dirt, and just go down to the roots, because this is going to draw in snails and earthworms as well to help, eat everything and compost your soil for you and create more soil. So starting out, you'll see like a huge abundance and growth, and we're coming up on growth season. Might as well get some seeds. You might as well start out and then just watch that growth really take off, and you'll get excited. And then you can move up to the next levels on tuning and learning more about it, collecting these positive ions, how it affects the plants. And this is where I'm at in the stage. But actually, I went a little bit further because now I'm splitting the nitrogen molecule.
Nice.
Awesome sauce.
Wow.
We need to get everybody growing like this. I love it.
Exactly. Bring us back to an age of abundance and health, and stop putting these GMO engineered poisons and pesticides into the actual plants that we're then eating, and get rid of all of the toxins and only natural, energized, over healthy plants that are probably just ripe with minerals.
Even all the fertilizers just kill the soil, kill all the microbes and stuff. So yeah, re-energize the land, hey?
And the fertilizer.
Record what you're doing, guys.
Well, that's another thing about the fertilizer. With electroculture, you don't need not even half as much. I'd have to say maybe a quarter as much. And pesticides are non-existent. When it's done right, bugs don't want to
And once
even
you
be
have
around.
like mulch going, yeah, you can probably get rid of any fertilizer once you got good mulch, and it would be a good experiment to try putting some copper in your mulch pile and seeing, if will that make it decompose quicker because it'll.
No, I've found that if it's really good mulch, it actually sprouts out as the tree again.
Oh, really? It just everything starts growing again. Wow.
I've been working on something, and in the very near future, I'm going to show what this technology can do at its most extreme level for a good thing, in a good way. So, yeah, copper is definitely a key. We can't see what you're showing there, Bernie.
So, yeah, these are all of the sequences you can run, and if you open that up, it has a list of frequencies that you can just play right through. So, but if you want to play the frequencies, hit that menu button again and hit frequencies, and then it has the whole list, and you can type in the search whatever one you want as well.
Perfect. There we go. Okay, so you're recommending to start, you said around 40 hertz or something?
Let's try the 32.5 with that neodymium magnet up on top of the coil, so you can hear it moving around. You know it's on. You know it's all working.
Okay, 32. You
got to connect it via Bluetooth.
Yeah, but sorry, I need to connect it via the Bluetooth now. Okay, so turning on the receiver, the amp. Am I going auxiliary or BT USB? Is BT Bluetooth? He figured it out. Right? Just takes a genius to flail at working a tablet every time on the live. Is it BT Hi-Fi audio or
Yep, that's it. BT Hi-Fi audio.
Paired. All right. And we got one coil here, and the other one is now on the other corner of the room. And let's try that again. Play the... Okay, so it's playing and not making loud noise.
Set your magnet up on top of the coil.
Here, so yeah, where did it? There we go. Like right. Oh, it's spinning. Can you guys hear it or?
Yeah, we can hear it. You just can't see it. It's small.
Oop. Oh yeah. You going in circles, and you can like feel the energy just holding my hand above the center.
Do you have stiff joints or anything? If you have stiff joints, set it right over top and let that realign your stuff. Like on your joints, your inflammation, like arthritis, it literally means inflammation of the joints.
Is that a spherical magnet?
What's that?
Is that a spherical magnet?
It is.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, I've used. I have a inch and 3/4 neodymium sphere magnet, and it throws it around.
See if we can get a better video.
Nice coil.
So you can see it shooting around there.
Oh, right, cool.
In the center. Oh, I see how it's following the coil, the energy that moves around.
Oh,
yeah, so
that's the middle of that.
Yeah, that's the electromagnetosphere.
Wow.
In the middle.
So is that following the path of electricity? It looks like it's
yeah,
a pattern.
the frequency going through, I think.
Yeah, so what it's doing, it is following the path of electricity, kind of. Whenever it's alternating current and two wires are really close together, that the electrical flows over it. then it'll start switching back and forth because it's alternating. The positive and negative keep on switching, and that creates the electromagnetic field that it pulses out. Because when those two charges switch polarities, it creates like a little pulse that's going out.
That is really something. Look at that little fucker go.
Right?
Yeah,
For experiments.
Now, you're not going to be able to do something high, like even just 1,000 hertz, because it's going to oscillate that magnet so much that you're not even going to be able to see it move. You could probably hear it just a little bit on like 528, but this is the reason you want to do low frequency so that it actually moves it and you can see it.
Oh,
But see the patterns?
Speed
What
cameras.
would a big spherical magnet do in the middle?
I've actually been able to pull power and produce power out of it.
So let's.
And so that's got no energy input to that coil at all, does it? That's just
No, it does. It does.
radiant energy.
No,
No,
it's got
energy.
The
Okay.
receiver, Campbell, that we're putting the frequency through.
yeah, it's a 320 watt
Okay.
Bluetooth amplifier.
Cool. So you can run different frequencies through it. Is that right?
Yeah, 100%, all the way up to 25 kilohertz.
As far as the thing is concerned, that's a speaker.
Yeah. So it's the same way a speaker works. Instead of pulling something and pushing it to make that compression, decompression of the atmosphere, it's just doing it through electrical and it's in electromagnetic fields or frequency wave fields.
Cool.
So at first, I'm going to say that we're speaking in theory here because I'm not a doctor. This isn't medical advice. This is not meant to diagnose, treat, nor cure any diseases. But in theory, you could say that it's going to knock out all the inflammation in your body. It's going to readjust your natural melatonin levels. It's going to excite your mitochondria to go ahead and start repairing your body. And it's going to be able to help electrical synapses in your brain to clear out these neural pathways so that you can think better. It'll stimulate your prefrontal cortex on this one because it's 32.5 hertz. If you were to run 40, that's the perfect gamma wave. And the prefrontal cortex deals with logic and decision making. Now, from all of the studies I've read, ADHD, schizophrenia, dementia, Alzheimer's, and there's a few other, it's all due to lack of gamma waves in the brain. So whenever you stimulate on 40 hertz, then it stimulates that prefrontal cortex, brings you up to speed. You're no longer stressed out and just like going everywhere. It creates a sense of calm so that everything's chilled out. You have better focus. You have better logic. And it clears that plaque out of your prefrontal cortex as well.
So that coil, that's the main part of your machines. That's your machine basically. That's what's giving off the frequency.
Yes, I have two of them because I have a differential. Yeah, I have two that have a differential in the wire gauges so that it not only kicks off Faraday rotation, but it also moves that third electrical field, that third EMF field. So it'll produce more than one because one's hitting like a sledgehammer and the other one's hitting like a little jeweler's hammer.
I think we lost
Nice.
Bernie.
Oh yeah. Oh, hang on. No, he's still there. He's taking himself.
Oh, maybe his one didn't work and it cut everything off.
Yeah.
Speaking of cutting
He's blacked out Canada.
I have to get
Completed
up in like
views.
4.5 hours, so I'm gonna call it a night. And thank you
Yeah.
for all the info,
Gerald,
Matthew,
thanks
and-
for everything you had to, of course.
Thanks for
Thank
being
you,
here.
everybody. But yeah, you have yourself a good night, man. It was awesome hearing everything you had to say today.
Yeah, I love the beatboxing, dude. Love it.
Thanks,
Love
man.
it.
Really appreciate that.
Yeah, for sure. And you know, like I said, we'll have to get together and I'll do this electroculture thing, and you know, we'll present more. I've got something in the works that I'm anxious to show everybody, and once I do, we'll take it from there. So
Yeah, I put my email address and my phone number in the private chat, so make sure you get that.
I definitely will.
That's amazing.
Beautiful coil, Matt.
Yeah, that's
Thank
something
you.
else. Moment I walked in, I couldn't believe it. I was like, "Oh man, I hope he uses that today."
Wow, when sorry, I was taking so long trying to find one of my larger spherical magnets, but it's locked away in the pyramid. My other one can't quite find right now. So I had a full ring magnet, and when holding it up to the coil while playing it, it starts vibrating at such an intense motion and power in your hand. It almost wants to jump out. It's pretty intense. Like as you get this close, couple inches to it, it's just shaking.
Tie it to a string and hold it over it.
Wow.
Use a bar magnet. You'll see the same amount of shake. If
Yeah,
not
but
more.
if you have like a shoestring or something and you can tie it to it, hold it over top and it'll spin.
Oh yeah,
that's so
definitely
cool.
the ring. Yeah, definitely. All right, guys. You guys have a
All
good
right,
night.
Gerald, thank you so much, and we'll be in touch shortly to get the agriculture, electroculture episode together. The next year of the coil,
For sure.
Yeah, I think probably a good point to end this. If Mr. Ominous wants to give us one last little set, and anybody else have any closing words before that?
No, thanks all. Nice to meet you, Matthew. And yeah, let's do this again. Let's get it growing.
Yeah, I love you guys. Nice meeting all of you.
Recharge the earth.
Yep, thanks for
And
showing
Ominous.
up. Everybody
Simon.
loves the science. Everybody is always having a good time listening to one another. Of course, this is always good edification. Edification. Edification.
It's so powerful. You want to try holding it there? Oh, they connected. That's why. Nice. Cold out.
There we go. Let me just yo go. Word. But you reckon with some harder than you reckon with crack. Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna just go good night and say ominous beatbox on YouTube, ominous beatbox on TikTok, ominous one. Check me out. Check out this show more and more for more science.
One love, everyone. Have a good night.
See ya.